At its most basic, Tinga Poblana is meat cooked in a spicy and smoky tomato sauce, and you have some of this in your fridge and you're setting yourself up for great meals throughout the week, or maybe you make it for a big group. This is one of those things that get better the day or two after, and it can be made with pork, it can be made with chicken, beef, whatever you have. So you've got to learn how to make this. Let's break it down. As I was saying, Tinga Poblana is meat cooked in a sauce that originated in Puebla, Mexico. However, there are typically two different preparations you'll see. First is the stew portion, where the pork is left in cubes and then stewed in a thinner sauce with potatoes. And then second is the filling, which is typically shredded meat in a thicker sauce used in tacos, tortas, tostadas that you'll see in street food places all over Mexico. Today, we're covering the second version. The most typical meat preparation from Rick Bayless's and Diana Kennedy's book are the pork and chorizo paired with the tinga sauce, but feel free to use any type of shredded meat. For example, chicken tinga is probably the most popular choice in the online world these days, but anyway, let's make this thing. To start, grab a pork shoulder or some random pork cut of meat with some fat like I did and chop it into pieces. In total, I added about a kilo or a little over 2 pounds to a cast iron pot, and then added 10 grams or 1% salt by weight of the meat before filling it with enough water to just cover the pork. Also, probably use a bigger pan than I did. Once the water is added, set it over medium-high heat and bring the water to a boil. Once boiled, turn the heat down to low and just pop a lid on it. Now, you want to stir it occasionally, but just let the meat go until it is tender. This will probably take about 45 to 60 minutes, low and slow, baby. After about an hour, you'll see the pork is nice and tender for shredding, and then there will also be some fat on the top that has rendered out, so grab a couple spoonfuls of that to reserve, and additionally, we're going to strain out and reserve some of the broth, of course, trying not to spill it. Once you have drained the rest of the pork, just pop it on the board to shred it with a fork. And for anyone that may have noticed, this was the exact same process that we did in my carnitas video a month or two back, except instead of letting these to crisp or fat, today we're going to put them into the sauce. For the sauce, I go for the simple blender route. So add 4 Roma tomatoes, 2 cloves of peeled garlic, about 1/3 of a can of chipotles and adobo, the signature ingredient, a sprinkle of Mexican or regular oregano, a sprinkle of salt, and then I'm using that reserved pork broth just to help thin the sauce and control the consistency. Now this is an uncooked sauce, so we're actually going to season to taste a little bit later on. And then lastly, before heading to the stove, slice about 1/4 of an onion into very thin strips. At the stove, drizzle in the reserved pork fat into the pan. Then once it's hot, fry the onions for about 1 to 2 minutes, and you can also add another little sprinkle of salt here just to help layer it and stirring occasionally. Once the onions are translucent, add the tinga sauce and simmer for about 5 minutes, stirring occasionally. And I like to add a spoonful of sour cream to mellow out the chipotle just a bit and give it a little bit of sourness. And as Rick Bayless points out in his book, the key flavor of the tinga sauce is the chipotles, which is a smoked jalapeno that makes the sauce spicy and smoky. And he says without a chipotle, a tinga is no longer a tinga. Once the sauce is simmered, toss in the pork, and then you're just going to let everything get to know each other for about another 8 or so minutes to let that sauce thicken and cook down. And I also forgot to add my bay leaf from earlier, so I'm tossing it in now. Now, if you're like me, you'll start eating spoonfuls of the Tinga Poblana, but this filling can be used in all sorts of ways, so fill up a container and you've got meals in no time. Today I made a tostada with a fried corn tortilla as the bottom, added a little sour cream, then layered over some of the tinga, then hit it with the shredded lettuce, tomato, a bit of pickled onions, and cilantro, and this thing is so delicious. Let us consume. All right, everyone, taste test time. We've got our tostada filled up. We've got the sour cream, the pork tinga with some fresh toppings on top. You'll see these all over Mexico at the street food stands. I mean, you really can't go wrong with the tostada. Let's give it a taste test. For me, this absolutely just hits the spot, and especially if you do have the Tinga made ahead of time, you can whip these up in literally like 5 minutes. You know, just fry a tortilla or use tacos, sandwiches, whatever you want to. But the sauce is really nice. The spiciness kind of hits you a little bit on the back end. You get some of the smokiness in front. And then like I was saying, I mean, today we used pork, you know, kind of covering the carnitas method, except we didn't actually like crisp it in the fat. So we kind of stopped short of that step and then just stewed it down on the Tinga sauce. But you could do this with chicken breast, thighs, you could do it with shredded beef, whatever you want to. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video. The recipe is gonna be up on my website. I'm gonna finish this tostada and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.